When it comes to your personal finances, do you feel like you have never truly had a real handle on where your money is going? Or do you feel like at the end of the month, you never actually have money for the things that matter most to you? Having a plan for your personal finances is one of the ways in which you can honor God with your money. And faith is a crucial element that many Christians forget to bring into their personal finances. Today, you are going to learn all about budgets, and not just any kind of budget, but we're going to talk specifically about how to create a value-based budget. Hey, I'm Katie Jones of Agape Investing, and if you're new around here, I am a faith-based money coach helping young professionals like yourself learn excellent money management skills that are rooted in the gospel. That way you can start living abundantly, giving generously, and radically advancing the kingdom of God. So what is a value-based budget, and how is it different from just any other budget out there? Value-based budgeting is aligning your monthly expenses with the things that matter most to you. So having a value-based budget is a really great way that you can actually plan out all of your money to go towards the things that actually matter to you. Many of my clients come to me saying, I know that God calls me to tithe and be a generous person, but I just don't have the money to be able to do that right now. And once we go through this process together, we're able to find out that they actually have more than 10% in order to give to their church, as well as ministries that they really want to support. So today I'm going to walk you step by step through the process that I take my money coaching clients through in order to create a value-based budget of your own. And if you have any questions along the way, please drop them in the comments below. I do prioritize getting back to you in a timely manner so that way you can start actually doing these things as soon as possible. So before you can even get to looking at your numbers and doing anything with them, I need you to take a step back first and really start to reflect on what is it that matters most to you. So again, creating a value-based budget is all about figuring out what it is that matters most to you and starting to align your spending to actually go towards paying for those things. So if you're not familiar with core values, here's a quick list to kind of get your brain thinking about what might be most important to you. And I always encourage my clients to narrow down what are their top 3 to maybe 5 core values. So I know it's really hard to figure out your top 3 because looking at that list, you might say like, well, I value all of these things. And it's not to say that everything else can't be a part of your budget. It's just we want to figure out those top things that you value most so that you can confidently start spending your money and putting it towards those things. If you're struggling with figuring out what your top 3 core values are, here are a few of the questions that I like to ask my clients in order to help them start to process through and figure out their top 3. Was there ever a moment when you saw someone doing something and felt a strong desire to be able to do that same thing? Is there anything you can think of that if you were offered to do it today, it would literally bring tears of joy and have you thinking, this is exactly what I want to do? When do you feel like you are at your 100%? Now, after you've answered those few questions for yourself, I want you to examine your responses and figure out if there's any kind of trends. Maybe your answers are focused on family, or maybe your answers are focused on your career, or maybe they're focused on things like the environment or church or volunteering. Okay, now that you've narrowed down your top 3 core values, it's time to start looking at the numbers. This part of the value-based budgeting process is probably one of the most eye-opening and pivotal moments for most of my clients, because this part of the process is really where we start pulling back the curtains, opening up the doors, and letting the light shine in on all of the ways in which we've probably been improperly using our money. In fact, my former client Lorenzo said that it was one of the most painful parts of the process, but it was such a blessing to be able to see this painted picture of where his money was going. This is honestly one of the steps that many people forget in the budgeting process in general, but this part is so crucial because it's almost nearly impossible to start taking control of your money without knowing where it's already going. Okay, so in order to actually go and start tracking your expenses, you're going to need a few different things. The first thing you're going to need are your bank statements and credit card statements. The second thing you'll need are either Excel spreadsheets or Google Sheets in order to start transposing all of your expenses into. The reason I highly recommend Excel or Google Sheets is because you can actually set up formulas to basically do all of the math for you. You want to get a good idea of how much on average you spend per month. So I definitely recommend looking at a minimum of 3 months worth of expenses. However, if you have the time, definitely work towards looking at 6 months worth of statements, because that will really give you a fuller picture of how much you're spending every single month. If you need some spreadsheets to help you get started with this process, you can grab the exact same Google Sheets that I use with each one of my clients, and it's in the description below. Okay, so I know the process was probably really tedious and long, but trust me, it's going to be worth it. So that's where we get into step number 3, and that is actually taking the time to evaluate all of your spending. Okay, so now you have a lot of data and it may just look like a bunch of random numbers, or maybe you're starting to see some trends and patterns with the way you're spending your money. And hopefully just viewing and seeing where all of your money is going is already getting the gears turning and giving you some ideas on how you can start saving and cutting back. So take some time and look at all of the months of expenses and start to ask yourself, how much were you spending on coffee runs? How much did you spend on eating out each month? Are you overspending on gas? I also want you to grab back out the core values that you wrote down for yourself and start comparing each one of your expenses to these core values. So step number 4 is where we actually start building your budget. And setting up a budget is really creating a plan for where your money is going to go throughout the month. And so I want you to go one by one through each one of your expenses and start to ask yourself if there's any way you can start reducing that expense, or maybe it's something that you can totally eliminate from your budget. And then set some goals for yourself to say, okay, I've been spending almost $1,000 on groceries. Maybe this next month I'm going to try and spend only $900. This process can easily be done on a piece of paper, but if you would like to use some really robust spreadsheet templates, you can check out the ones that I personally use for my own budget, as well as the same templates that I use with each one of my clients. And so that brings us to the last step of the process, which is to reevaluate your budget. So it's going to look really similar to repeating this process, but I want you to ask yourself, did you stick to the plan that you made for yourself? And did your spending actually align with your core values? And take time to readjust. You're not going to do this perfectly the first time around. Trust me, it's going to take time. But if you stick with it, it's going to become easier, and the decisions you're going to be able to make are going to become smoother when you have to make them. One thing that was really important for my husband and I was to be able to be really hospitable. We love, love, love having people in our homes, playing board games together, and eating really good food. And so one thing we personally love to prioritize is being able to host people in our house and providing meals for them. And so in order to do that, we looked at all of our expenses and where our money was already going and found ways in which we could cut back and then reallocate our funds to actually be able to be hospitable people. So one of the ways in which I found that I was overspending personally was on coffee runs. I was spending hundreds of dollars every single month going to grab coffee when I had coffee available here in my home. It was really easy for us to see that my coffee runs weren't really something that I deeply valued. Sure, I enjoyed them and it was really fun to go out for coffee as often as I was, but our top priority was being hospitable people. And so it was super easy to say, I can make coffee at home this week and we can save this money to be able to provide more meals for our friends. And so this process is going to look very different for you than it is for me, than it is for any one of my coaching clients. This value-based budgeting process is supposed to be unique to whatever your core values are. And so I'm not here to define what those are for you, but it's really important that you do take the time to define what they are for yourself. So that way, when you make spending decisions, it's going to be a lot easier to say no to certain things and yes towards others. And these core values might actually change throughout your lifetime. So just continuously reflect on what is it that's most important to you right now. The process may seem a little overwhelming or confusing to you, so definitely go and rewatch this video, pause it at the times, and give yourself the time to actually reflect on what your core values are, where you're spending your money, how you can actually set up a budget. But if you're still struggling and want the extra help of having a second set of eyes on your budget, feel free and reach out to me. I would love to jump on a call with you to see if personalized coaching is the right fit for you. So now you have the 5 steps to creating a value-based budget for yourself. Again, if you have any kinds of questions about this process, please drop your questions in the comments below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If you found this video helpful, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to my channel. I share weekly videos to help you become a better steward of the money and resources that God has given you. And while you're waiting for next week's video, be sure to check out this video on 4 ways in which you can start to discern how God actually wants you to be spending your money. See you next time.